What's going on, spectators? Another week, another episode of Spectales, chock full of everything you love. Jesus and I are bringing the heat with another listener-submitted blue chip Grail tale, and we've got some eternal speculation too. So grip your meow meow firmly by the handle and alert the spoiler police. This is episode 17.
This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spectales, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
Hello and welcome everybody to episode 17 of Spectales, a comic book podcast where we tell the stories of the people who collect and create the stories we love. Thank you very much for listening. We're your hosts, Jake and Jesus. Jesus, how's it going today?
It's going phenomenal today, man. Phenomenal.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, you're throwing out some big words there. Must be a pretty good day.
Well, it's word of the day toilet paper, and that was on the today phenomenal. So that's what I wanted to use.
Word of the day toilet paper. Yeah, that's where I do all my best reading. All right. Well, I think we've got kind of a pretty unique show coming up, and I say unique because it's sort of this calm before the storm, as I'm going to put it. This show is going to be the last show that Jesus and I do alone for a little while. I know everybody out there might sound sad. We are going to continue to do shows. We just have a lot of guests lined up and a lot of really, really cool guests coming. We've got some artists. We've got some writers, people that you are going to be interested in, people who have probably worked on some comics that you have read recently. So that's all I'm going to tease for now on that. I don't want to give too much away, but those guests are coming up and will start promptly next week. But this week, in this particular show, Jesus and I are going to go ahead and cover another user or listener submitted Grail tale. So this one is kind of special to me in some ways because it's one that was inspired, I guess, or partially inspired by the Hulk 181 trade tale that I told in episode 3. So one of our listeners who also happens to be local comic collector to me, that individual listened to the podcast and kind of got inspired, and he went off on his own and picked up a Grail of his own. So we're going to tell that story. And of course, as always, we're going to get into our recent pickups and our speculation, and then we'll wrap everything up. But I'm pretty excited about my recent pickup. I teased it in the last episode that we had with Reggie Collects, where I said I had a book coming in from New Zealand. So I'm ready to talk about the book now. And then, of course, speculation. We've got some Eternals-esque speculation coming up. I think that's how I would describe it. Right, Jesus?
Absolutely. I think it's adjacent or because of, and it's also a great time to put, we'll put multiple, but spoiler alert or semi-spoiler alert, I guess, because we're not going to really talk about the movie itself, even though we've both seen it. But we are going to be talking about things that prompted us on our speculation for this week.
Yep, exactly. But don't worry, anybody who's worried about spoilers or anything like that. One, we'll give a heads up before we jump into any of that, and two, it's not going to be speculating about on the movie itself, not as far as plot points or anything like that. So you really don't have anything to worry about. That being said, before we go into anything else, I want to go ahead and give a shout out. We got another review on the podcast. Somebody wrote a review on Apple Podcasts. And as we've done in the past, I like to read these and just give kind of a thank you shout out to the individual that gave us the review. So without further ado, here we go. The review is written by MJ Holthaus. What I love about Jake and Jesus, or is it Jesus and Jake? This leads me to believe that you might have wrote this, Jesus. uh, is they are very consistent, very entertaining, and fairly concise. I don't enjoy podcasts that ramble too much, and I don't like it when podcasts are not consistent. Even if it's not a weekly show, I enjoy knowing I'm going to continue a journey with them. Thank you guys. Your content about comic book speculating and comic book appreciation is awesome. Well, MJ Holthaus, thank you so much for that review and for listening in. From a consistency standpoint, honestly, if we weren't recording right now, Jesus and I would just be on the phone gabbing about comics anyway. So we
sure,
just
man.
we just figured we'd record. It makes it a little bit easier. And two, as far as the length of the show, we try to keep it fairly concise. But it's just kind of what it is. You know, the stories that we tell or the tales, they take as long as they need. And, you know, like I said, we try to cut it back every once in a while. So most of the time I just have to cut Jesus off because he's constantly talking. Right, Jesus?
Yeah, man. Once I get going, man, it's kind of hard to stop, man. So, but yeah. So real quick, three cool feelings I don't normally get to have. One, you know, somebody leaving a review, a positive review. That's a pretty cool feeling. So thank you for that. I'll send you $20. Thank you for putting Jesus and Jake first because that's how it should have been. Two, you know, the us being able to help somebody out and they're collecting that we're gonna get to in this Grail tale. That's a pretty cool feeling as well. Really cool. I never thought we'd get to that point, or maybe I did, but just not so soon. I don't know. And then three, you know, being in on something, you know, ahead of time. I know what's coming. I know the guests that are coming. I know if it was me, how excited I would be to listen to these upcoming shows. So that's just another pretty cool feeling that we have. So just another quick tease for what we have coming for you guys.
And just to circle back on the whole whose name comes first, I just want to say it has always been alphabetical. There was no other like purpose behind it. JA comes before JE, at least according to the alphabet I learned in school. So
Yeah, but I think
it was
Spanish
never
names come before English names. I think that's just how it goes. Also, I
well
mean,
because
if you're a religious type, then my name should always be first, you know. But I'm not, you know, I'm not here to split
are
hairs,
you
you know.
comparing yourself to Jesus? Did you
Well, I
just
would
do
never,
that?
but you just did. That's all I'm
Oh,
saying.
he's the Jesus of comic books, everybody.
A comic book Jesus.
Yeah, put it on a shirt. We'll sell it. All right, so let's let's jump into recent pickups. I'll let you go first. What do you got?
All right, I got two books. One, I'm just gonna kind of highlight, and we can talk a little bit about it. The other one, I kind of gonna go a little bit in depth into it, not too much. But the first book, I think we talked about this book a while. The
Oh
first
yeah,
Nova number one.
nice,
This
good
book is,
pickup.
you know, solid mid grade. You know how I do it. Solid mid grade book that I picked up from an Instagram seller.
Yep.
Really,
I like that
really,
barcode though. I like that
yeah,
barcode.
yeah, newsstand. So really good price. I like this book. I like the potential it has. I think Nova's coming. We've talked about it. What is it? Kevin Feige doesn't do stuff just to do it. So I think he's coming. I don't know if it's going to be this version or the newer Sam Alexander version, but Nova is coming, and that's a good book to have. It's still a cool cover too, you know. So that's why I pick it up. I'm picking it up every time I see it.
Speaking of, how many copies do you have?
This is my fourth copy. So I have two graded, one in grading, and then this is the fourth one. Third or fourth. I got to go back, but I think it's four books.
I've got mine with Taco right now, of that small collection I picked up. Which he actually he was pressing and cleaning it last week, and he messaged me to tell me that it was pristine. He thinks that it could have a 9.8 potential. So
nice.
I don't know about that. I tend to be a little bit more conservative when it comes to grading the books like that. But he was texting me saying that it's in pristine condition, and I was like, I mean, I thought it was good, but I didn't think it was that good. So
if you get a 9.8 on that one, that's like what is it? Quadruple what you paid for that.
There's just no way. There's no way. My expectation was like 9.2, 9.4. So
That's, I mean, the highest grade I have is a 9.0 right now so far. I have one that's in grading that I think has potential to be higher, but that's what I have right now is a 9. I have like an A590 and then this mid grade, and the one that I think has potential for higher, but I wouldn't say it's a 9.8 though.
Well, I guess we'll see now that it's recorded whether we'll see if anybody remembers in whatever 6 months when I finally get it back from
Yeah,
CJC.
exactly.
So maybe somebody will come back to this recording and call me out on it. All right. So you got a second one that you're going to dive
I got
deeper?
a second one. Yeah, we're gonna dive deeper into it, but we've been talking about this.
Oh
She-Hulk
yeah,
number
yeah,
one.
yeah.
She-Hulk number one. Newsstand again. This book is in pretty good condition. I say very fine near men or better in newsstand. So really, really
It's a warm blanket book as if there ever was one, right? And that's in gorgeous
okay.
condition.
Yeah. So this is why I want to talk about it. Look at the price. I didn't pay that much, by the way. I'll tell you offline what I paid for it. But really cool book, man. I like it. Warm blanket. But so I gotta give a shout out to someone on YouTube. I mean, they don't know me, I don't know them, but I watch their YouTube content. It's called Comic Book Investments. He recently put out, I think today, as of this recording, he put out a video called 5 Key Books That Have Dropped 60%
Oh
or
yeah.
more, I think. Yeah. She-Hulk is one of them. So the high was in July, and right now it's on a dip. And out of all the books that he talked about, this is the only book that he and I as well, and everybody who listens to this should understand that it's the only book that's going to rebound because it's a warm blanket, because the show's coming. We haven't seen a trailer, we haven't seen anybody in costume or anything, so it's really weird. Why is this book dropping? That's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit, but it shouldn't be dropping. This book should only be either going up or staying at a plateau until the show comes out. But that gives us more time and more opportunity to get these books at lower prices.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a popular show. Everybody keeps talking about how it's going to break the fourth wall. It's going to do a lot of interesting things, things that made movies like Deadpool very successful. Everybody looked at them and they thought they were hilarious, and they really liked the way Deadpool engaged with the audience. Well, I think that's exactly what She-Hulk is going to do. We're going to get a lot of that breaking the fourth wall and that communication and the humor and letting the audience in on jokes, and that the fact that it's a comic book movie or a show or TV show. I think it's going to be popular, and I do think that the book is going to. I think it'll blow up. It'll get big. It's going to get some value, and I think it's going to stay. Right? These books have these ebbs and flows. Well, they'll pop off, and then they'll come back down to reality. Well, I think the new reality for that book after the character becomes very popular is simply going to be a significantly higher value than it is right now.
And the thing about the She-Hulk, real quick, two things I want to talk about, or just put my points on are, I mean, she's going to be the main character of these shows, right? So the last couple of shows that we had were WandaVision and what is it, Loki, right? So
Yeah.
obviously those books are Silver Age books, but even like the Vision book, the White Vision book, kind of popped off for a while during the show. I anticipate this book is gonna pop a lot because it's a lot newer. Newer, I think it's Bronze Age, 1980, I believe. And she's the main character, so that's one.
Yep. Yep.
Two, we talk about hand-me-down characters, right? The ones that are
Yeah.
going to get handed. She could potentially be a hand-me-down for Hulk, whether we get a real Hulk or we get her as the fill-in Hulk, since they probably have the rights to her more, I guess, untangled than the original Hulk.
Potentially, yeah. And for those listening that haven't heard the phrase yet, we throw around hand-me-down characters, and we mean that with all due respect to the characters themselves. But there's a lot of the original characters, so Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Thor, all of these primary heroes that everybody knows, everybody loves. Their origins are in the golden silver age time, But all of these characters have been reset in so many ways. You were just talking about Nova. Which version of Nova are we going to get? Are we going to get the Bronze Age one, or are we going to get the modern age Nova? We don't know. But what we're saying is these new characters, the reimagining of Iron Man, Riri, right? The reimagining of these characters are kind of hand me down, as in the mantle has been handed down to the next version, and so we call them hand me down characters. And in this particular case, you could look at She-Hulk as potentially a hand me down Hulk, but I've also been hearing so many rumors that there's still more to come with Mark Ruffalo, that he is not done with the Hulk character, and that he is happy to continue to play the role and continue to be that that Hulk, that version that everybody has kind of really gotten attached to. I mean, think about the Hulk before. Lou Ferrigno, wasn't he the last time people actually got attached to a Hulk personality, a Hulk character or actor? Because then after that, there was a slew of Hulks that nobody wanted to see ever again. Eric Bana, Edward Norton. I mean, these are the two most notorious fails when it comes to Hulk. So, and Mark Ruffalo kind of hit it out of the park on his first one. I still think Avengers, his first, sitting as Hulk, was still by far his best performance, in my opinion. Yeah. But that said, She-Hulk, there's Amadeus Cho, I think is still obviously a potential for the hand-me-down Hulk character. Yeah, a lot to speculate on out there. But I think that as far as the book goes that you picked up, She-Hulk #1, still a very obtainable key book that has a good ceiling on it.
For sure. Yeah, and I'm getting them graded too, I think. I don't think I'm going to leave them raw. I think I'm going to get them graded because they're desirable, man, and it's a cool cover.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good cover. It's a good book. So, all right, great. Well, let's move on to the one I got. I teased it in the last episode with Reggie. I bought a book from New Zealand. Now, I didn't go seeking a book from New Zealand. I was looking for my first pre-code horror pickup. So I picked up Tales from the Crypt 42. This is 1954. It's a Jack Davis cover. It was really meant for me. I meant it to be my first pre-code horror pickup, my first Tales from the Crypt pickup. I wanted it to be the first because it reminded me of a cover, one of my favorite creepy covers. So I kind of reverse engineered this. So here's what happened. I fell in love with creepy. I was doing a lot of research into the creepy series from the Silver Age. I've talked about that series many, many times on the show already. I found Creepy #8. It was one of the first creepy books I bought. And I just love the cover. On the cover, it's a coffin cover is the way I describe it. But it's basically a group of people standing around a coffin that contains Dracula or a vampire. And you've got, one guy opening the coffin. You've got one guy holding a stake over the vampire's heart, and another guy wielding a mallet, a hammer, that's going to come down and drive the stake into the heart of the vampire. And Creepy 8, like I said, one of my favorites. I love that cover. And then as I was going through some of the Tales from the Crypt books or their covers, I stumbled upon Tales from the Crypt 42, which is the very same scene. And I just it kind of blew my mind. It's a Jack Davis cover, classic pre-code horror style. And it blew my mind because I just thought that there's no way that this was by accident, right? That Creepy 8 cover is an homage to this Tales from the Crypt 42. It has to be, right? Because the Tales from the Crypt 42 is a Jack Davis cover. Jack Davis is just an iconic pre-code horror artist. Jack Davis also did a lot of work on Creepy. He did the cover for Creepy #1. So Creepy #8 has to be an homage to Tales from the Crypt 42. So I said to myself, hey, if I'm going to buy a pre-code horror book, the first one has to be that original cover, because that Creepy number 8 was the first creepy book that I bought.
Are you planning on grading it?
No, see, in this case, with like a Hulk 181, like I wanted that book graded, because that number in the top left didn't just validate the value or anything like that. But that, the grading protected the book, and if I ever wanted to sell it, I would have that exact value. But this Tales from the Crypt 42, like I have no intentions of ever, like I just don't see, that's not a book I'm going to flip. It's not a flip book. And the Hulk 181 isn't a flip book either. I want it in my collection, but I want it encased and I want it protected. This Tales from the Crypt, it's not that I'm going to put it in a top loader. I'm going to keep it protected as well. It's just not the same thing, right? I don't know what it was. I don't understand why, but this pre-code horror book feels like I need it tangible. I need it in my hands. Where the Hulk 21, I need it protected and somewhere safe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is it a value thing, or is it a like? Because I've said this. I don't know if I've said it here before, but I've said this before. When I think it was on my post, when I get the AF-15, if it's slabbed, I'm gonna crack it. I'm gonna crack it and I'm gonna read it because I want to, because that's the original book of when Spider-Man came out, and I want to feel the pages. I want to smell it, and then I'll probably re-slab it. But I definitely want to have it raw for a little bit. Or if I buy it raw, I'm just going to read it and then eventually slab it. But I definitely want to put my hands on it, right? Like I want to feel the history of it, but at the same time, afterwards, I want to preserve it because of the value.
No, I get that. And I will say, I think if Tales from the Crypt 42 was some, monster key of a book that had a very large amount of value, right? This book is valued somewhere in the couple $100 range, depending on if you have a crazy person like me bidding or not. But that said, I don't ever see this as, this book's not going to be worth $8,000, right? It's just not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what keeps it at that. If it's never going to get to that level, I might as well be able to touch it, hold it, open it up and read it, that kind of thing. But for a book that's going to get to the thousands and thousands of dollars value, well, at that point, maybe we should be encasing this thing and keeping it protected so that my dumb ass doesn't ruin it somehow.
Get some tape on the front cover like both of us have in the past.
Oh my God, you had to bring that up.
Got to remind us so we don't happen again.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's move on to the Grail tale, because I'm excited about this one. I do know the story, but I know that Justin wrote a pretty well detailed email on it, so I want to hear what he had to say.
All right, man, I'm gonna go into it, and I'm just gonna call this Grail tale the Inception by Inception Grail tale, and we'll get to that afterwards. But this is Justin, and on Instagram he goes by JL Collects Comics. Sorry about that. And the book in question is a big book. It's a Grail book. It's none other than Journey into Mystery 83, the first appearance of Thor. So Justin writes to us into our SpecTales podcast at Gmail email that when he got back into collecting a couple years ago, he had no direction or goal. He bought incentive variants and random hot books, and most he did okay on, but months later, that didn't make him happy. So they sat in boxes doing nothing. But at the beginning of 2021, he told his buddy that he needed to get a Journey into Mystery 83, but he never really took it serious. Months went by, and then he listened to our podcast and Jake's tale about his trade for a Hulk 181. It blew his mind how quickly he pulled it off. But what really resonated with him is that some of the books he traded in his deal, he has at one point had. So the one that specifically stood out was Iron Man number 55, which is a first Thanos. So while he likes Thanos, is that a book that's important to me more than the Grail? Probably not. So he also had some variants that were worth hundreds of dollars sitting around. So a week or two after that, another buddy of his nearly pulled off a giant size X-Men 1 trade. And at that point, it clicked. What am I doing here? So that night, he posted several books on Instagram asking who is down to trade. Still doubting himself and being somewhat realistic, his trade goals that he put on there were X-Men 4, Fantastic Four 5, or Hulk 181. With a 2.5 Journey to Mystery 83 selling for 10,000, he thought that he should focus on books closer to 5K. So within minutes, he had several responses and most just offering to buy his books outright. And while he was attempting to negotiate a deal on a 181, nothing acceptable materialized. However, the post was still effective because it made what he already should have known clear, that he had a lot of money tied up in books that were not his top grails. The day of his post, he saw Journey to Mystery 83 CGC 1.0 posted on eBay. That was a nice presenting copy. What was important was that it was complete with no slab notes on the actual book itself. So after the trade deals went nowhere, he decided to reach out to the eBay seller about a direct sale through Facebook. Their message responded they do not respond to Facebook messages, so he called the shop. The conversation took all of about 2 minutes. He asked the shop if they'd be willing to sell it directly and take off the eBay fees, and it was an instant yes. He got the PayPal invoice, and it was on his way to him no less than 24 hours after he made the Instagram trade post. Now all he has to do is just sell some of those books, which won't be fun, but he wouldn't change a thing because he has his Journey in a Mystery 83 CGC 1.0 first appearance of Thor. And that's it, man. That's the Grail tale.
Dude. That's a serious book, though. Really. Like, that is massive, right?
Yeah, man. So I call it Inception by Inception because, you know, you and us, our tale, our podcast and your tale of training for 181, which in and of itself, you know, training for 181 in 1 week is still crazy, right? It's still crazy to do something like that. Like, Jake, you're crazy. So I just wanted to say it one more time.
You know, sometimes when you get a wild hair, you're just like, yeah, damn it, I could really use a Hulk 181 right now. And then, you know, and when you get that wild hair, you just got to go out and do it. Right? But
yeah. I mean, it is true. It's true. You know, I'm glad you were able to pull it off. I'm glad it was acceptable. And I think the way it worked out, you got something better than you were initially, you know, shooting for. So I think that's also awesome. So that influenced Justin, right? And he started to realize some things about his collecting, the way he collects, and what is he really doing? What is he really going after? And he realized that a lot of those books that you traded, he has, or he's had at some point. So why not him? You know, like, basically, why not me? Why can't I do what Jake did? Which all of us can. You know, we just have to put our mind to it and figure out what's more important, right? And so then when I was reading it, I was like, man, this is the same thing for me as a collector. Like, I have a bunch of them, man. I have a bunch of books. I have a bunch of smaller keys. I even have one, like I keep mentioning to you, that I did very well on was the X-Men 266. You know, it's a 9.8 double signed by Claremont and Rubenstein. That's worth a pretty penny, you know, 1,600, 1,800 bucks right now. And that's before any X-Men stuff comes out.
yeah.
But is that, I mean, I could be using that, you know, just as an example. I think, like, one of my favorite characters is Ghost Rider, Marvel Spotlight 5. I think that's like a 4.0 range right now. I think for a Marvel Spot for like $2,000, somewhere around there. I think I can get a 4.0.
Yeah.
And
somewhere in there.
I'd be happy with it, man. That's a black cover. That's a hardcover to get in high grade. Which one would I want more? The X-Men 266, 9.8, first Gambit signed, or would I rather have the first appearance of Ghost Rider? And for me, it's Ghost Rider all day, right? So it's just interesting, man, how it's the same message from the earlier, what was it, episode 3 to now, but it just clicks differently, and it clicks different for everybody. So I'm glad, Justin, that it clicked for you and that you're able to get your hands on it. I'm looking at the book right now on Instagram, and it's such a sweet cover, man. I mean, it's iconic. Everybody knows the cover with how do you say the hammer's name? Mjolnir, whatever, however you say it.
Meow meow. That's
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
I can't I can't take credit for that. That's Kat Dennings from the first Thor movie. Uh, no, I Justin and I are local to each other. And so it's kind of this small world story. Effectively, I used to go to a certain comic book shop around me more often. That they used to be my LCS. I started working a different job, so my LCS changed because the store that was closest to me was a different one. And as it turns out, maybe a little bit more of a honey hole for me than the other one was. But the previous one, which is one that Justin he kind of works at like once or twice a month. And I don't actually, to be 100% honest, I don't know that him and I have ever met in person. But
Hmm.
we both collected from the same store. We both bought books there. And he was friends with one of the people working. And he was like, hey, what's your Instagram handle? And it was like, your Instagram handle. And he told his friend, who also happens to work at the store, Justin, to follow me on Instagram. So Justin ends up following me and we chat for a little bit, but nothing crazy. And then he decides to listen to our podcast, which was super cool of him. And he comes out and then he drops that on me. He was, he listened to the Hulk 181 and same thing, he said in the email, but he was like, man, that really blew my mind that you just went out and got it. That's the book that you wanted and you traded. I traded good books to get that Hulk 181 and a lot of them hurt. Like I was not thrilled that I had to give up the Iron Man 55 or the 9.0 Avengers 48. That one hurt the most because I ended up going out and immediately buying another one of those books because I was so sad that I got rid of that 9.0. That said, Justin and I have now been talking back and forth. Him and I haven't met up yet. Like our goal is to, figure out a day we would meet up at the local shop and just kind of BS and talk comics and stuff like that. But in this particular story, Justin, I think it's really cool that you decided to do something that you'd always wanted as well. Journey into Mystery 83 is nothing short of one of the most iconic comic books out there. Right. This is blue chip key all the way. And to kind of come to that decision for yourself that, you had to give up a lot or you're going to, right? You're going to sell those books, but I don't think you're ever going to regret it because you're going to be able to still always have that Jim 83, which is just, one of the king of keys, especially if that is like your book, right? Anyway, Justin, I just want to say good for you. I'm really happy for you. I've got photos of the book that I still need to share with Jesus that you shared with me on Instagram. It's a really nice presenting 1.0. And like I said, the cover is clean. You can see, there's not any giant like missing pieces or anything like that. You can see everything. And the Journey into Mystery, the title is quite clear on it. So congratulations. It's a hell of a book to have grabbed. And the fact that our small podcast played a small role in helping you, get over that hump or whatever you want to call it, I think that's just crazy. And then as far as you, Jesus, the fact that it took one of our listeners to be inspired by me to then inspire you only goes to show that you don't respect me enough on this show.
If it wasn't clear before, I think now. So I need you to start saying all your pieces of advice to other people, and then it gets to me.
And then maybe you need the boomerang effect, right?
No, I don't know, man. I just feel like, when you did it, it felt like for me, because I have some big books too, but the amount of big books you have and what you're willing to trade, like it hurts. Like, and I know it hurt you, but and I think too, maybe because I already had a 181, right? Like I already had one in my, so I really couldn't like understand it as well as this trade, right? Or this, or how he's having to sell. Because even then he's not really trading, he's selling, which is something I told you to do, to sell. But, nevertheless, it's the same concept, right? And so that's I
Yeah, the
think that's what it's
motivation
like.
to just go out and get the book that you want. And anybody else out there
Yeah.
listening that's kind of sitting or waiting or potentially just wanting a really big book but doesn't know how to get there, look for paths. It's not always in many cases it's not always putting yourself in debt either. I would never recommend
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I wanted to say too is I'm glad you said that about different paths. So there's different paths to get there, to get to the book. One of them that I've been recently exploring too is a lot of these Instagram pages, for the same reason they're trying. And as you get into these bigger keys, it's less amount of people that can afford them, but they're offering payment plans. I think payment plans for a big key book is also potentially something that people can explore to get that book. If you put 25% down and then you pay every 3 weeks, 2 weeks, a month, you still get that book, and you already locked in the price at whatever price you locked it in at. So if it goes up in value, you're still paying on the original price. So that's another thing that I'm glad you said. It's different paths. So everybody has a different path to get to their grail.
Yeah, and I think that what you just pointed out, there are some opportunities with no interest payment plans or things like that, and I would just warn everybody, stay within your own means. Sometimes it's a longer journey for some people than others to get those grails, but I would tell you it is always worth it if that's the grail that you want. Like if that's your grail, just stay within your means. And I don't mean to preach, but in general, I know what it feels like to have debt and to try to unbury yourself, kind of thing. So I've been there. I've righted that ship, so to speak, for myself. And just speaking from that experience, just be smart. The hobby will come to you. Sometimes in a funny way, the hobby will come to you. But if you got assets, books that you can trade or books that you can sell, there are ways to do it. And I think Justin just is another example of somebody that kind of was sitting for a little while, maybe a little stagnant in the way he was collecting or what he was collecting, but he found that direction and it wasn't all at once. So that said, I think we can transition on and maybe go into speculation. So we're going to give kind of a warning here. So Jesus and I both saw Eternals this last weekend, and we wanted to use some of the knowledge or information that we gleaned from the Eternals movie to talk about speculation books. In this particular case, we are not going to divulge any plot points or main story key elements that would lead to be spoilers for what happens in the Eternals. Now, we are speculating on what's going to happen after the Eternals, and this is going to draw information from in the movie. So just a heads up, if it's something you are not wanting to do, go ahead and just hit pause and come back to it after you've seen the movie. Or if you want to ride through it, we promise you we are not going to tell you what happens in the movie or what unfolds as far as the plot. So I guess that's the spoiler warning for all you out there.
That's a good spoiler warning, but again, we wouldn't do that to you guys. I'm just looking at it from an aspect of, if I was listening to this as a collector, as long as they give me some spec and I haven't seen it yet and they don't tell me what's going on in the movie, I'd be grateful, because that way I can start looking for those books and I know to pick them up. And then once I watch the movie, it would make sense to me. And I think that's where I'm coming at it from.
Yeah, I think so too. So, all right, Jesus, I'm gonna let you kick off the spec, because I know we kind of briefed a little before we started recording, and I think you've got a really good one to kick this thing off.
I actually have two of them. And the first one I'm going to talk about is, and it's one that I already have, but I would probably pick up a nicer copy, because if I remember correctly, mine's mid-grade as per usual. It's Adventure into Fear number 24. And both of these two are also like double keys or double small keys, which is also good to have, because you have more shots at the book kind of blowing up. So the first one is Adventure to Fear 24, and it's the first appearance of Blade outside of the Tomb of Dracula series. So up until that point, he had only been in Tomb of Dracula, and now is the first appearance of Blade outside of Tomb of Dracula. And also in that book is the first meeting of Blade and Morbius. And as we've discussed, it looks like, potentially Sony and Marvel are on the collision course to kind of, I don't want to say merge their universes, but at the very least, come within a handshake of each other, or just a nod of the head or a hat tip or something. But it looks like they're going to be somewhere in between that. So it would be, since Morbius is coming out, we just saw them release a full trailer of it, to have Blade and Morbius, the first meeting of them in comic books, which is Adventure to Fear number 24.
I feel like I know this is just my opinion, but my opinion is Marvel is, Marvel, the MCU, and Disney, and they're kind of I don't know however you want to put it, right? The idea of like the high school dance where you have the really popular, attractive individual dancing, and then Sony is this kind of nerdy loser, not so cool individual that is trying really hard to dance with the popular person, trying as hard as they can to just even dance next to the person. They're not dancing with them, they're just dancing next to them, just so that everybody will just be like, oh yeah, Morbius, they might be a part of the MCU, right? Like because and the trailer is trying so hard. That trailer is trying so hard to say, hey, we're kind of a part of the MCU, right? Like we're almost kind of there. So and anyway,
we're affiliated somehow.
Yeah, we are affiliated.
Look at all these Easter eggs we're dropping. We're affiliated.
Yeah. So Sony's just trying too hard for my liking. But anyway, that's maybe a different conversation. So what's your next spec?
My next spec is actually growing on me even more since I initially came up with it, because I'm really digging the cover. So I'm gonna spec on Doctor Strange number 61. I mean, the cover to me is sweet. It's a black cover, has Doctor Strange in it, in all his Doctor Strangeness. It also has what looks like Dracula maybe in it, and it also has some skulls in the background. So it's a pretty cool book. It's from 1983. Frank Sirocco cover. The reason why this is important is two reasons: the origin of vampires and how they are linked to the Darkhold, which we know the Darkhold is in the MCU. And then the other one is the first meeting of Doctor Strange and Blade. So it looks like Doctor Strange is taking, a primary spotlight right now in the MCU. Blade is coming. So for them to meet, it's going to happen in the MCU. But then why not have the first appearance where they meet each other, and then also really cool cover.
That cover is amazing. Right now, this is the very first time I've seen it. I went and looked it up while you were just talking, and holy crap, that's a sweet cover. Who did this cover?
Frank Sirocco. Frank Sirocco.
Frank, well done. I don't know, you're not listening, Frank, but well done to you anyway. This cover is ridiculously good. And I do believe I think that's Dracula in the background there. Go look it up. Yeah, Doctor Strange 61. That cover alone is worth it. But then the connection between Doctor Strange and Blade, it does seem like, hey, this is a good book to have. So nice.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
All right, looks like I'm up then. So I've got one, and I'm going to go ahead, and I am going to at least state that there is a scene, a moment, not even a scene. It's not a full scene. There is a moment in the Eternals where a Eternals character literally, and it's not important to the story. It's not important to the story. It seems like it's this big throwaway moment, but there is an accumulation of a bunch of crap on their ship, and one of the things that's on there is a sword that another one of the Eternals character picks up, and they identify the sword as Excalibur. And then they make a kind of joking line about how King Arthur was a really big fan of Angelina Jolie, like he had the hots for her. right? And that's literally the moment. That is not a spoiler for anything that happens in the movie, I guess, as far as pertinent to the plot or the story. But here's the thing. They literally show Excalibur, the sword Excalibur. And I think that it is too obvious that it's a nod to what could be to come in later in the MCU. And so that is Excalibur, the sword is drawn. 1988, Alan Davis, Chris Claremont. I think it is a super affordable key. It is the first appearance, the first team appearance of Excalibur. I I don't know what else they would be doing with that sword and why they would talk about it. Like I said, I don't know. It just seems like it's more than a tip of the hat. Like it's literally the sword. They identify it by name. So for them to just talk about it, I don't know. I have not been seeing enough people on the internets talking about this particular moment in the movie. Everybody seems to want to focus on other stuff. And I'm sitting here saying they literally said the name of the sword. People, just go get a copy of Excalibur #1. If you're specking, right? If you're the specking type, which if you're listening to this, you might be. So something to be aware of. Something to be aware of is there are a lot of prints of this book. So the one you want to look for, there are two first prints. There are a lot of subsequent prints, but there are two first prints, and the more valuable one or the rare one is the one without the price displayed on the cover. So that one is a little bit more rare, and anything that is $3.50 or over are subsequent prints, like later printings, because the price eventually went up. So, but look for one if you're looking. Go do some research, but look for prints that do not have a price on the cover. I don't mean just the barcode or anything like that. It literally doesn't have a price listed on the front. So that's the one that you want to look for. It's the more rare one, but even still, it is a very affordable key. So I don't. You won't break the bank going out and getting it, and quite literally, the sword is in the damn movie. So I don't know how else to say that. It seems like a no brainer. Just me though.
Well, a couple things I want to just say there. The word you're looking for is it's a more scarce version without the price on there, so spectators know what that's about. So,
Now the Scarce Army is coming after us. Good God.
Hey man, you poked the bear, man. You poked the bear. So a couple things with this, man. So you mentioned it's the first team appearance Excalibur, Phoenix, Kitty Pryde, Lockheed, and Nightcrawler, right? So
Yeah.
Lockheed and Nightcrawler are X-Men. They were just recently bought by what is it, Disney Marvel through the Fox purchase. So I mean that's a really good potential there to use those characters, because I remember Lockheed came out, I think, in one of their movies. I think it was that horrible New Mutants movie that languished for 5 years before it came out or something like that. And at one point, the first Lockheed was very like a spec book. But Lockheed Nightcrawler, I think that'd be something where they could use them if it's not going to be what we expect it to be, which is just the whole full-on origin of the X-Men, etc. So, and again, the other thing about that is, I mean, $5-10 for this book, man, right? So, grab a couple copies, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, okay, and then just something else to play to is that in a lot of the MCU prior films, there hasn't been a lot of happening within London itself, right? Not a lot happening in Great Britain. And in Eternals, we have a little bit of action there. They talk about Excalibur, and the team Excalibur primarily exists within the Great Britain or in the UK. So I think that there's there are breadcrumbs, right? There are things that you could follow to get to this spec, many ways to get there. And to me, when it's this affordable, it is kind of it's a low risk speculation. It's something that you can buy and sit on for a little bit. I'm not telling you that a year from now they're going to have casting announcements for Excalibur by any means, but I am saying that I think it's a little too convenient that they would bring up the title, the title and the name of the sword.
Yeah, and to go a little bit further into that, we've talked about the different things that Marvel wants to do. They want to do galactic stuff. They want to do horror monster stuff. They want to do Alec McBeal type things. I mean, where's sword and sorcery? That's, Excalibur, all that stuff. So that's potential.
Well, we already know the Black Knight is coming, right? Sword and sorcery, right? That's I don't think I don't think they're too far apart. And Excalibur fits that mold. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up speculation, and that's kind of it for the show. Jesus, we've got a lot of guests coming up. This is going to be the last time that we can really address our listeners. I'm going to say for about a month at least before in December, we might get back around to having just a tag team show, but I'm not entirely sure. You got anything you want to toss out or anything like that?
No, just that, I mean, the way things are going right now, it doesn't look like we're going to have time in December either, because there's some more artists and potential guests coming as well.
No, it's starting to get really fun. We're starting to get a lot of guests. We're starting to get a lot of people wanting to come on, which I think is really great. And we're getting more and more people reaching out to us on social media, talking about their Grail tales. We've even had some Grail fails come in as far as messages. And I just want to continue to reiterate, thank you so much to everybody reaching out and telling us how much either we're, impacting the way you collect, or we're impacting just in general your weeks every week you're listening in. So thanks for that, and all the stories. Please continue to reach out and tell us your Grail tales, because we will make time to say those things. We want to make sure that we are staying true to what this podcast is about, and that is about telling the stories about collecting. So if you have a story about collecting a Gym 83, or you have a story about collecting X-Men 1, or whatever your Grail was, we'll take the story. So that being said, we really do appreciate everybody listening. Thank you very much. If you do enjoy it and you have a quick opportunity, jump over to Apple Podcasts and just give us a quick review. We appreciate that, and that helps other people find us, because those reviews do help when it comes to searching and relevance. Other than that, that's kind of the show. Jesus, any more thoughts before we head out?
No, man, I'm just feeling like I'm the only one with the Grail fail all of a sudden, man. That's been on recording. It's fine.
Everybody, please do not send us any more Grail fails. We want to make sure that we make Jesus feel like he is the only person that has ever missed out on a Grail. Jesus, the failure.
It happens, man. It's not the first time.
No, you're definitely not, and I'll be the first to say that I really am not either. So, anyway, thanks everybody for listening. We will be back next week with another wonderful guest and hopefully another great Grail tale. So, have a good week.